She learned how humans reproduce, then asked if we could try it together. Humans move through the station in their daily routines, checking equipment, logging data, or simply drinking synthetic coffee in small lounge areas. Lyra, the alien visitor from a distant star system, watched them carefully. Her species had never been this close to humans before. She had learned their language quickly, studied their habits, and adapted to their daily life. But there was one thing about humans that fascinated her more than anything else: their reproduction. It started by accident. Lyra had wandered into the station library while Ethan, the human researcher, was busy in the lab. She was curious, as usual, about everything humans touched. The shelves were tall, filled with books, tablets, and holoscreens. One book in particular caught her attention, a thick human biology textbook. She picked it up with her delicate fingers, scanning the strange diagrams. They were crude, she thought, but strangely complex. Humans seemed so fragile, yet capable of incredible creation. She turned the pages slowly, absorbing every detail, her large eyes widening at the words. It, it is different from my species, she whispered to herself, her voice soft but melodic. Her species reproduced through a form of energy transfer, a process she had always considered normal. But human reproduction, it was physical, emotional, and curious in ways she could barely comprehend. By the time Ethan returned, Lyra was sitting cross-legged on the floor, the book open in front of her. She looked up at him, her expression a mixture of wonder and hesitation. "Ethan," she said carefully, "I found this. I think I understand a part of human reproduction." Ethan froze for a moment, unsure whether to laugh, panic, or be fascinated himself. He had spent months observing Lyra and answering her harmless questions about the human body and emotions, but this was different. Yes, Lyra," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice calm. "What do you mean?" Lyra tilted her head, a gesture humans often used when curious. "I read and I watched, I studied. I think I now understand the mechanics of human reproduction, but there is something more, a feeling. Humans feel something more than biology. I want to know it. I want to try it together, if you allow." Ethan blinked. That was bold, but he could see in her eyes that she meant no harm. This wasn't aggression, curiosity, or mischief. It was pure, intelligent curiosity. He took a deep breath. "Lyra, that's a lot. You want to experience it. Are you sure?" She nodded eagerly. "I want to understand fully, not from books, not from observation, from experience. Is that possible?" Ethan hesitated. It was not a question of biology or safety. Humans had a complex culture around intimacy, and even in the sterile environment of a space station, boundaries mattered. But he also realized that Lyra wasn't asking in a sexual or romantic way, at least, not the way humans defined it. She wanted to understand connection, emotion, and human uniqueness. He considered it. Then he smiled a little nervously. "Okay, Lyra, but we'll do it slowly, step by step. Learning first, understanding, then maybe more. We'll focus on the human part you don't get from books." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Step by step. Yes, I can do that." Over the next few days, Lyra became even more attentive. She followed Ethan as he went about his research, asking questions about human hearts, emotions, and even the smallest gestures. She tried to mimic handshakes, hugs, and smiles, sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing in ways that made Ethan chuckle. One afternoon, she approached him in the recreation hall, carrying a small hollow projector. "I made something," she said proudly. She turned it on and a three-dimensional model of the human body appeared, highlighting reproductive organs. The model rotated slowly, showing each step of conception. "This is the biological process, yes. I understand it fully now." Ethan examined the model, impressed by her meticulous attention. "Yes, that's correct. You're really studying this, huh?" Lyra nodded, tapping the model gently. "I want to know everything. How humans feel during this. Why it is important to humans beyond just reproduction." Emotion, connection, trust, love, all these things I see humans express. I want to know them too. Ethan realized that Lyra's curiosity wasn't just scientific, it was profoundly human in itself. She didn't just want facts, she wanted to feel, to understand the deeper meaning. He sat down beside her. Okay then, we start with learning. You need to understand consent, trust, emotional connection. Everything humans feel is as important as the biology. Lyra nodded eagerly. I understand. I want to feel it all. I will try to understand fully. Please teach me. Their lessons began slowly. Ethan explained human biology step by step, using simple words and analogies. Lyra listened carefully, sometimes interrupting with questions. Why do humans smile during this? She asked one day, tilting her head. Smiling, sometimes it's a reflex, sometimes it's pleasure or comfort. Humans use expressions to connect emotionally, Ethan explained. Lyra processed this, then smiled herself. I will try. I want to connect as humans do. She mimicked his hand gestures, small touches, and gentle hugs. At first, Ethan was cautious, explaining boundaries and comfort levels. Lyra listened intently, always careful not to push too far. Over time, their interactions became playful and innocent. Lyra tried kissing the back of his hand the way humans sometimes kissed partners' hands. She laughed when she missed the mark, and Ethan laughed too, amazed at how endearing she could be. You're very human sometimes, Ethan said, shaking his head in disbelief. Lyra tilted her head. Is that good? It's fascinating, he admitted. You make humans look new, different. You notice things we take for granted. One evening, after a long day of lessons and experiments in gestures and emotional expressions, Lyra approached Ethan with a new question. Ethan, I think I understand the physical part now, but there is something else, something I cannot learn from books or observation alone. Humans' intimacy, closeness. I want to know that. Can we experience it together? Ethan hesitated, feeling the weight of her question. This was the moment he had anticipated but never truly expected to arrive so soon. He looked at her, the alien who had become his friend, companion, and student of humanity. He thought about human curiosity, human empathy, and how humans were capable of bridging gaps that seemed impossible. Lyra's request was not just physical, it was a request for understanding, for connection. And humans, he realized, were uniquely capable of teaching it. Lyra, he said slowly, we'll do it together, but we'll focus on connection first. Learning what it means to feel close, to trust, to share emotions. The human part that cannot be learned from books. Lyra's eyes glowed with excitement. Yes, that is exactly what I want. Connection, trust, understanding. Please, Ethan, teach me. And so they began a new phase of their lessons, one not just of biology, but of human intimacy in its purest, safest form. They held hands, shared meals, and practiced gentle touches that conveyed care and understanding. Every gesture became a lesson, every laugh a discovery. Lyra learned quickly. She learned that humans often express themselves in subtle ways, through small acts of trust, comfort, and playfulness. She learned that connection was more than just biology. It was shared experiences, laughter, and empathy. Ethan watched her progress with a mixture of pride and wonder. Humans were unique. Their intelligence, curiosity, and ability to bond emotionally set them apart in the galaxy. And here, in the sterile environment of a space station, Lyra was discovering it firsthand. By the end of the week, Lyra had gained a remarkable understanding. She had not yet experienced reproduction in its full physical sense, but she had learned something perhaps even more important: the human capacity for connection, trust, and care. And as she looked at Ethan, sitting beside her in the quiet observation deck, she whispered softly, I think I am beginning to understand. The human way is very beautiful. Ethan smiled, feeling the truth of her words. It is, and we'll keep learning together. The stars outside glittered against the darkness of space. Inside, Two very different beings had begun a journey that neither books nor observation could teach, an exploration of connection, trust, and the subtle, beautiful ways humans experienced life. For Lyra, curiosity had become understanding. For Ethan, humanity had become even more extraordinary through her eyes. And together, they would continue to discover the depths of human intimacy, step by step, hand in hand, heart to heart. The space station's corridors were quieter than usual that evening. Most of the crew had retired to their quarters, leaving only the soft hum of machinery and the occasional distant footsteps. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor of his quarters, a hollow projector floating nearby, projecting soft, glowing lights. Lyra sat opposite him, her large eyes reflecting the gentle glow, her posture tense but excited. Tonight, they were going to begin the next stage of their learning. Lyra had spent the last week absorbing every detail Ethan had taught her, human biology, gestures, and even expressions of emotion. She had practiced smiles, gentle touches, and the small ways humans showed care. But there was something more to learn. Something humans felt that went beyond observation or science. "Ethan," Lyra began, her voice soft, "I have tried the gestures you showed me. Holding hands, smiling, small touches, I think I understand. But I want more. I want to understand how humans feel when they are truly close." Ethan nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. This was the moment he had anticipated, the moment where their lessons would move from curiosity and play into something more profound. "Okay, Lyra," he said carefully. "We'll take it slowly. Learning intimacy is not just about touch, it's about trust, connection, and emotion. We'll start with that, step by step." Lyra's eyes brightened. "Step by step, yes, I am ready." The first exercise was simple, eye contact and conversation. Ethan instructed Lyra to sit comfortably, relax, and look into his eyes without speaking. At first, Lyra's gaze was intense, analytical, almost like a scientist observing an experiment. Ethan smiled and reminded her, "Not everything is about analysis. Let it feel natural. Humans feel emotion when they connect, not just when they understand." Lyra blinked and adjusted her focus. Slowly, her gaze softened. She could feel something. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. There was a warmth, a subtle tension, a sensation she had never experienced before. Ethan noticed it too. The air between them seemed charged with quiet anticipation, a human kind of closeness that no book or model could teach. After a few minutes, they spoke. They talked about their day, small joys and frustrations. Lyra listened, but she also shared things about her world, how her species celebrated learning, how they shared energy instead of physical touch, and how trust was expressed in ways entirely different from humans. Ethan realized that despite her alien nature, Lyra was capable of understanding emotional depth. "You are very open, Lyra," he said gently. "Most humans take years to trust someone completely. You're learning very quickly." Lyra tilted her head. "I want to understand fully. Humans are complex, beautiful. I want to feel it, not just know it." The next step was touch. Ethan explained how human touch could express comfort, care, and trust. He showed her the simplest gestures first, holding hands, brushing a hand against a shoulder, a gentle hug. Lyra tried each one carefully, mimicking his movements with precision, but also with a noticeable curiosity in her eyes. The first time she reached for his hand, Ethan hesitated. He had taught her about consent, boundaries, and respect, but seeing her genuine curiosity made the moment feel delicate. She held his hand lightly, testing the connection. It felt different than anything she had known. A mix of warmth, trust, and something subtle yet unmistakably human. "You feel something," Lyra whispered, almost in awe. "This connection. It is different from energy transfer in my species. It is emotional." "Yes," Ethan replied softly. "It's one of the most important parts of being human. Connection is more than biology. It is about feeling understood, trusted, and safe." Lyra's eyes widened. "I want to feel that fully. Please, Ethan, teach me more. Over the next few days, they practiced small, innocent gestures of intimacy. They shared meals, sitting close together, and talked about everything from favorite memories to dreams of the future. Lyra learned to recognize subtle expressions, a smile that meant amusement, a sigh that meant worry, a glance that conveyed affection. One afternoon, Lyra surprised Ethan. She gently brushed a hand over his forearm while laughing at a joke. Ethan looked at her, astonished. You just did that naturally. Lyra tilted her head, curious. Did I do it correctly? Ethan chuckled. Perfectly, that is human closeness. Gentle, playful, caring. You are learning faster than I imagined. The alien leaned back, thoughtful. Humans, you show care in such small ways. Energy, touch, words all together. It is beautiful. Then came the most challenging lesson, expressing emotion directly. Ethan explained that humans often revealed feelings through honesty, vulnerability, and sharing personal thoughts. Lyra was hesitant at first. Her species rarely expressed emotion in the same way. Feelings were considered secondary to logic and survival, but she was determined to understand. Ethan began by sharing a story from his childhood, how he had once failed an experiment on a distant planet and felt embarrassed and frustrated. Lyra listened intently, her eyes reflecting empathy. I understand, she said softly. You felt vulnerable. That is human courage. You trust me with this? Yes, Ethan replied. And you are learning courage too, not by risking life but by opening yourself emotionally. Humans value that very highly. Lyra considered this, then took a deep breath. She shared a memory from her childhood, the first time she had connected with another of her species through energy transfer. It was different from humans but similar in importance. I felt trust. I want to feel it again, this time human style. Ethan nodded, impressed by her insight. You are learning empathy. That is one of the things that makes humans unique. We can share understanding even across worlds. Lyra smiled, a gesture she had perfected over the past week. Then I am learning humanity, yes. Not just biology. Yes, Ethan said softly. You are learning humanity. The next exercise was playful and innocent, mirroring. Ethan demonstrated simple gestures, folding arms, tapping fingers, tilting the head, and Lyra mimicked him. Then she added her own gestures, small adjustments that reflected her alien perspective. Each time they mirrored each other, it created a sense of synchronization, a silent communication that humans often felt but rarely acknowledged. You are very precise, Ethan said with a smile, but also creative. That is human connection too, not exact imitation but understanding and sharing rhythm. Lyra blinked, pleased. I like this. It is like a dance of trust and attention. I feel closer when we do it. One evening, after hours of practice, Lyra sat beside Ethan on the observation deck, watching the distant stars shimmer. There was a quiet comfort between them now, an unspoken understanding that went beyond words. Ethan, she said softly, I think I am beginning to understand. Humans do not just reproduce for survival. They connect, trust, share. They feel in ways I cannot predict, yet I can feel with them. Ethan smiled, looking at her profile against the glowing stars. Yes, Lyra. Connection is as important as biology. Humans are unique in that way. We care, share, and grow together. Lyra tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Then my learning is not complete, but I am closer. I feel something new, something humans feel, often deeply. And I want to learn more every day. Ethan reached out, letting her hand rest lightly on his. She held it, her touch delicate, curious, and trusting. The sensation was simple but profound, a connection neither biology nor energy alone could teach. It was human. You are very human sometimes, Ethan said quietly, a mix of awe and amusement in his voice. Lyra smiled, leaning slightly closer. And you are very patient. That is human too, yes. Yes, Ethan replied softly. Patience, trust, and care. That is part of what makes humans special. By the end of part 2, Lyra had made remarkable progress. She had learned the subtle cues, the emotional rhythms, and the small gestures that made human intimacy so unique. She had not yet experienced full reproduction, but she understood the depth behind it, the trust, the connection, the sharing of emotions that no textbook could teach. Ethan looked at her, a mix of pride and wonder filling him. Humans were extraordinary, capable of teaching, connecting, and empathizing across species and worlds. Lyra, with her alien perspective, had reminded him of the beauty in simple gestures, in trust, and in human curiosity. And Lyra, for her part, had discovered something remarkable. Understanding humans was not just about biology or observation. It was about feeling, connecting, and sharing. She had begun to grasp the essence of humanity, step by step, gesture by gesture, heart to heart. As they sat together on the observation deck, hands lightly touching, Lyra whispered, "Ethan, I want to continue. I want to learn everything humans feel. I want to connect fully." Ethan nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "We will, step by step, one day at a time, together." Above them, the stars shone bright and endless, a reminder that discovery of the universe and of the human heart was limitless. And as Lyra and Ethan embarked on this new phase of learning, both knew that what they were discovering was not just biology, not just science, but the profound, beautiful art of human connection. The observation deck was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the space stations, engines, and the faint blinking of distant stars beyond the glass walls. Lyra sat cross-legged, her long fingers resting lightly on her knees, her large eyes reflecting the glow of the planet below. Ethan sat beside her, mirroring her posture, watching her carefully. After weeks of lessons, experiments, and careful exploration, Lyra had already learned much about humans. She had studied their gestures, their expressions, and their small ways of showing care. She had practiced holding hands, smiling, and playful touches. She had even learned how to share personal thoughts, opening herself in ways her species rarely did. But tonight was different. Tonight, they were moving into the final stage of her learning, full connection, the complete human experience of closeness, trust, and understanding. Lyra turned to Ethan, her voice soft and curious. "Ethan, I have learned much, but I feel there is one last part I do not understand fully. Humans experience a closeness, a joining that is not only gesture or touch. I want to feel it, with care, with trust, with you." Ethan paused, looking at her honestly. He had anticipated this moment, but now that it had arrived, he felt a mixture of awe, pride, and responsibility. "Lyra," he said slowly, "we will proceed carefully. Connection is about trust, understanding, and mutual comfort. Not just the physical part. That is the human way: patience, respect, and care first." "Agreed," Lyra nodded eagerly. "Agreed, step by step, I trust you." They began with physical closeness in the safest ways possible. Ethan guided Lyra through, sitting next to him, leaning slightly closer, allowing their shoulders to touch naturally. He reminded her that even this small closeness carried meaning, comfort, trust, and the start of shared experience. Lyra mirrored him, her body language gradually relaxing, a soft curiosity in her gaze. "Feel it," Ethan said gently. "Notice the warmth. Notice how being near someone can make you feel safe." Lyra did. It was subtle but unmistakable, a warmth unlike her species' energy transfer. A gentle pull toward understanding, trust, and human intimacy. She let her hand rest lightly against his, testing the connection. "This is different from energy exchange in my world. It is emotional. I feel it in me, not just in my senses." "Yes," Ethan said softly. "That is the beginning. Humans share closeness not just physically but emotionally. We trust, we care, we connect." For the next few days, their lessons expanded. Ethan guided Lyra through simple exercises of trust and care, emphasizing mutual consent at every step. They practiced guided hugs, leaning toward each other, feeling the other's warmth without rushing. Gentle touches, brushing shoulders, holding hands, resting arms lightly around each other. Sharing memories, telling stories from their pasts, even small failures or moments of embarrassment to build vulnerability and trust. Each moment deepened their understanding. Lyra learned that human intimacy was not only physical, it was an exchange of emotions, shared understanding, and patience. One evening, after a particularly long conversation, Ethan suggested they try mirroring each other's breathing. Humans often do this naturally when close. It creates a rhythm, a silent connection. It shows empathy and attentiveness. Lyra tilted her head, curious. Breathing together, how will this help? Just follow me, Ethan said. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled. Lyra mimicked him, matching the rhythm. For the first few minutes, it felt mechanical, almost like following a strange ritual. But gradually, she began to feel something deeper, a sense of unity, a subtle bond of trust, an understanding that no book or observation could teach. This is fascinating, Lyra whispered. I feel connected, not just with my senses, but with you. It is human, Ethan smiled. Exactly. Humans experience closeness in many ways, physical, emotional, mental. It all builds together. They progressed naturally to touch and gestures that conveyed affection, still within safe, respectful boundaries. They explored, holding hands while talking, noticing how simple touch could enhance empathy. Resting heads on shoulders, a gesture Lyra found strange but comforting. Small, playful touches, like tapping fingers or brushing the back of a hand, creating laughter and shared joy. Lyra laughed at herself often, finding humor in her own awkward attempts. Ethan joined her in laughter, amazed at her eagerness to learn. Each interaction strengthened their bond, teaching her not only human intimacy but also the beauty of emotional curiosity. You are learning the subtle art of human connection, Ethan said one evening. It is not easy, even for humans. Many never fully grasp it. Lyra's eyes sparkled. Then I am fortunate. You teach very well. I feel closer every day. The next lesson involved vulnerability and honesty. Ethan explained that humans often shared feelings directly to deepen intimacy. Lyra, hesitant at first, revealed a memory from her childhood, a moment when she had failed to connect with her sibling through energy transfer. She described the embarrassment and the longing for understanding, emotions she had never shared with another being. Ethan listened, nodding. That is exactly it, Lyra. Sharing vulnerability is human. It creates trust. It allows intimacy to grow naturally. Lyra reflected on his words. Then, being human is not only about reproduction. It is about sharing feelings, trust, care, love. Yes, Ethan replied softly. It is all connected. Biology is just one part. Connection, trust, empathy, that is what makes humans special. Lyra's gaze softened. She reached for his hand, this time with confidence. Then I want to learn fully, step by step, with you. Ethan took her hand, letting their fingers intertwine naturally. We will, he said, every step, every day. The following days brought small but profound moments of intimacy. Lyra learned, reading subtle expressions like a slight frown or smile to understand feelings. Gentle closeness, leaning slightly when sharing stories, feeling warmth without words. Playful interaction like teasing or mimicking gestures, which humans often use to bond. She became increasingly attuned to the emotional rhythm of humans, noticing how a shared laugh could bring comfort, how small touches conveyed care, and how mutual understanding created a bond stronger than biology alone. One night, she rested her head gently on Ethan's shoulder. This is different from energy transfer, she whispered. I feel it in my entire being, connection, trust, care, human intimacy. Ethan smiled, gently resting his head near hers. Yes, that is human intimacy, not rushing, not forcing. Just being close, understanding, and trusting. Lyra closed her eyes, absorbing the warmth. Then I understand, humans do not only connect through reproduction, they connect through trust, patience, and shared experiences. I feel it fully now. The final lesson came naturally. Ethan explained that humans often merge emotional, physical, and mental closeness to experience full intimacy. Lyra, eager to understand completely, participated carefully, always observing, always learning. They practiced. Long hand-holding, feeling the subtle changes in pressure and warmth. Mutual leaning, where their bodies touched naturally while sharing stories or dreams. Silent communication, exchanging emotion without words, a form of understanding humans called presence. Each exercise brought laughter, curiosity, and moments of awe. Lyra's understanding of humans had grown beyond biology. It encompassed empathy, trust, and care. She was experiencing intimacy in its truest sense, safely and fully. Ethan realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not in muscle or technology, but in curiosity, patience, empathy, and the ability to connect deeply, even with someone entirely alien. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Ethan, I feel it now. Not only the gestures, not only the touch, but the bond. Humans are remarkable. Connection is everything," Ethan nodded. "Yes, Lyra, that is why humans are extraordinary. We create bonds, trust, care, and love. It is as important as anything else we do." She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder once more. "Then I am beginning to be human in understanding, not in form. Thank you for teaching me." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He had shared humanity in its most profound form, not through force or demonstration, but through patience, empathy, and trust. Together, they had discovered what no book could teach, the beauty of human connection. As the station rotated slowly above the planet, Lyra and Ethan sat quietly, hands intertwined, hearts open. Outside, stars glimmered endlessly. Inside, two beings, one human, one alien, had discovered the extraordinary power of curiosity, empathy, and emotional intimacy. Lyra had learned not only reproduction, but the essence of humanity, connection, trust, and shared experience. And Ethan had learned that humans, with all their complexity, had the ability to teach, guide, and connect across species and worlds. In the quiet of the observation deck, with soft laughter, gentle touches, and unspoken understanding, they knew their journey was far from over. But for the first time, Lyra felt truly human, not in body but in heart. And Ethan realized that the galaxy would never seem as vast or as lonely again, because curiosity, patience, and trust could bridge even the greatest divides. Together they watched the stars, a symbol of infinite discovery, knowing that the most extraordinary exploration was not of planets or galaxies, but of connection itself.